Good Friday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for January the 13th. Oh man, it's Friday the 13th. Didn't even think about it. Hopefully today is going well for you so far. A little bit of a rough day yesterday weather-wise. The storms rolled through. My grill got knocked over. Now it won't light. I was testing it, just seeing. We got some issues. Might have to do some work on it. Garbage cans got blown away from where they normally are. That stinks too. But hey, if that's the worst, if those are the two worst things that happened in the storm, we really can't complain all that much, can we? I know there was a little bit of damage elsewhere, so let's be mindful of those who might need some help in some various ways and try to be a good neighbor as best we can. Thanks so much for tuning into this reading, though. Let me go ahead and get the text of Genesis chapter 18 up on the screen for us. I was going to read about Abraham's three visitors as the Lord and I believe two angels appear to Abraham and speak to him. And then they have a little interaction with Sarah as well. And then there is the famous scene of Abraham pleading to the Lord for mercy upon Sodom and Gomorrah and their wickedness. We'll see that here within this text as well. So again, we're looking here at Genesis chapter 18. Beginning reading in verse number 1, the Lord appeared to Abraham at the oaks of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance of his tent during the heat of the day. He looked up and he saw three men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the entrance of his tent to meet them, bowed down to the ground and said, "My Lord, if I have found favor with you, please do not go past your servants. Let a little water be brought, that you may wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. I will bring a bit of bread so that you may strengthen yourselves. This is why you have passed your servant's way. Later you can continue on." "Yes," they replied, "do as you have said." So Abraham hurried to the tent and said to Sarah, "Quick, knead 3 measures of fine flour and make bread." Abraham ran to the herd and got a tender choice calf. He gave it to a young man who hurried to prepare it. Then Abraham took curds and milk as well as the calf that he had prepared and set them before the men. He served them as they ate under the tree. "Where is your wife Sarah?" they asked him. "There, in the tent," he answered. "The Lord said, Yahweh said, I will certainly come back to you in about a year's time, and your wife Sarah will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent behind him. Abraham and Sarah were old and getting on in years. Sarah had past the age of childbearing. So she laughed to herself, "After I am worn out and my Lord is old," referring to Abraham, "will I have delight?" They've gone this whole time without having any children. She said, "Now would I find joy in having a child?" But Yahweh asked Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, 'Can I really have a baby when I'm old?' Is there anything impossible for Yahweh? At the appointed time, I will come back to you, and in about a year she will have a son." Sarah denied it. I did not laugh," she said, because she was afraid. But he replied, "No, you did laugh." The men got up from there and looked out over Sodom, and Abraham was walking with them to see them off. Then the Lord said, "Should I hide what I'm about to do from Abraham? Should I hide what I'm about to do from Abraham? Abraham is to become a great and powerful nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him so that he will command his children and his house after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. This is how the Lord will fulfill to Abraham what he promised him." Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is immense, and their sin is extremely serious. I will go down to see if what they have done justifies the cry that has come up to me. If not, I will find out." The men turned from there and went towards Sodom, while Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Abraham stepped forward and said, "Will you really sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away instead of sparing the place for the sake of 50 righteous people who are in it? You could not possibly do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. You could not possibly do that. Won't the judge of the whole earth do what is just?" Yahweh said, "If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Then Abraham said, since I have ventured to speak to my Lord, even though I am dust and ashes, suppose the 50 righteous lack 5. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? He, being Yahweh, replied, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. Then Abraham spoke to him again, suppose 40 are found there. Yahweh replied, I will not do it on account of 40. Then Abraham said, let my Lord not be angry, and I will speak further. Suppose 30 are found there. He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Then he said, since I have ventured to speak to my Lord, suppose 20 are found there. Yahweh replied, I will not destroy it on account of 20. Then he said, my Lord, or excuse me, he said, let my Lord not be angry, and I will speak one more time. Suppose 10 are found there. He answered, I will not destroy it on account of 10. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he departed, and Abraham returned to his place. That is Genesis chapter 18. Alrighty, so in the opening few verses of this chapter, we see the Lord coming to Abraham, him and what are going to be, I believe, again, 2 of his angels going to be revealed in the story as it continues on. And they come and they kind of stand in front of Abraham, in front of his tent. And this would be, I guess, an ancient equivalent to how we might knock on somebody's door. We might knock to let them know that we are there. It doesn't seem we have doors here and like that at this time. So they just stand there. Abraham notices them and he jumps up right away. And that's because hospitality at this time in this history, or excuse me, in this culture within history, they did not see hospitality, that showing kindness to strangers, they did not see that as a burden, but instead a privilege. Therefore, they desire greatly to help those. It was seen as something that was very good and honorable to do within their culture. So he goes and bows down to the ground, again, showing simple respect to those visitors who are before him. And he refers to them as my Lord. And this is not, as you could tell on the screen, is not Lord with the small uppercase letter. So this is not the word for Yahweh, but this is the word for Adonai, and the gospel be translated as master. This is just again a term of respect, something akin to maybe sir, as we might say it. And he says, hey, if you have found me, if you found favor with me, if I found favor with you, then let me serve you a little bit. He talked about, let me give you a little bit of water, let me let you wash your feet, let me give you a bit of bread, and then I'll let you go on your way. Then you can go on your way. Well, Abraham does a really good job here of this good skill of underselling and over providing. He said, hey, just a little bit of water, just a little bit of bread. And, to us, that sounds like a snack. Might give you a snack for the road, but he actually ends up giving quite a substantial meal to these 3 men as he prepares for them not only bread, but also some beef, and then some curds and milk. And he serves that to them, and then he acts not just as host, but also as waiter. He provides for their every need. He shows himself as really a tremendous example of someone showing hospitality, a tremendous host, a tremendous servant. And again, I believe he's doing this at this point, not because he recognizes that this is the Lord, that this is a theophany, but instead he just sees these as normal people that he's just having the opportunity to serve. The divine knowledge, though, of Yahweh and the proof that he is who he is comes up next, though, where he talks about, it says, hey, where's your wife? Abraham says she's in the tent. And then Yahweh says, I will certainly come back in a year's time. In a year's time to you, and your wife is going to have a son. At this point, I'm sure the dots are connecting with Abraham. He knows exactly who this is now. And it probably has this epiphany. Oh, whoa. This is Yahweh. This is somebody that is not just a regular person. Sarah doesn't seem to know this. At this point, we're wondering, has Abraham told her about this promise? Or maybe has he just failed to convince her of the reality of this promise? Because Abraham's reaction is that she laughs. She's listening in the tent. She's eavesdropping, and she hears this. She knows she's old. She knows Abraham's old. She's past the time where it would be normal for a woman to have birth. She's out of that cycle in her body, And she laughs to herself and she says, now after I'm worn out, is that whenever you think I'm going to have a child? Is this whenever I'm going to have a delight? I think this is absolutely skeptical. Whereas the previous laughter from Abraham might have been a little more borderline between being skeptical or being just happy. So Abraham at this point is needing to convince his wife, and yet the Lord hears this. He knows she's laughing, and he says, is there really anything impossible for me to do? Abraham, do you really think there's anything I cannot do? And he affirms, I'm going to come back and you will have a son. Sarah's over there laughing, but I'm just telling you, this is what's going to happen. It's funny that Sarah denies it. She laughs, or she says, I didn't laugh. She does this because she's afraid. She's scared in this moment. And then just kind of as a matter of fact, no, you did laugh. I'm not arguing with you. I know what I'm talking about on all fronts. I know that you're going to have a baby in about a year's time. And I know that you laughed. You can't give this up past me. I'm more than just a person. I am God. I have this divine knowledge. So there is some humor here. There is some just incredible discussion that goes along here in the first 15 verses. And now Sarah is completely filled in. She is informed. She knows what is going to happen. And now it's just a matter of waiting for the time to come. Well, in the meantime, as the men get up to go from there, they look out over Sodom. Abraham, again, being a good host, is escorting them away from his tent and from his territory. And I wonder verse 17. I wonder verse 17 is the Lord actually saying this to someone, or I wonder if this is an internal thought that he is having. Because of course he knows what's going on. He knows exactly what's happening here. So I wonder if this is him saying, should I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Should I do that? He's kind of mulling it over in his head. He's going to be this great nation. He's going to be a powerful nation. He's going to be the one through whom all the nations are going to be blessed. I've chosen him to be the conduit to carry out faith and to teach his descendants of my way. Do I want to allow him to participate with me in this endeavor? Because I think that's kind of what's going on here. He's allowing in this discussion going on, he's going to allow Abraham to participate in what takes place. He's going to allow Abraham to see the great need for righteousness and justice, because he says here that he will command his people, verse 19, he will command his children and his house after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. So he's saying this is what he's going to do. Well, let me show him the real need for that. Why it is important to be righteous and to be just in everything. So the Lord then turns, it seems, and says to him, Yahweh says to Abraham, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is immense, and their sin is extremely dangerous. There are shrieks of torment for the oppressed that are coming up from these two cities. I'm going to go down and see if what they have done justifies the cry that has come up to me. And if not, then I'll find that out too. So then the two angels leave and go on towards Sodom, but Abraham remains here with the Lord. And Abraham seems to exhibit here his real, I guess comfort might be a good word for it. His comfort, his trust, the fact that he's going to be called a friend of God, that he is someone who is very, not arrogantly confident, but he feels like he has the ability to speak plainly and honestly and bluntly to Yahweh, because he steps forward and he says, because he's putting the pieces together here, he says, are you really going to sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Are you really going to do that? Are you really going to destroy everybody because of the sin of some? He knows, I believe, what it demands for justice to be carried out. He knows what the necessary sentence is for those who do not act righteously and justly. So he goes on and he asks the question, won't the judge of the whole earth do what is just? Won't he give grace to those who are righteous and just punish those who are wicked? And of course, the answer there is yes, he will. And we're going to see that as we go throughout the story. So he begins this in what we might term a negotiation. But the reality is that God in no sense here is changing his mind at all. His mind is made up. He knows exactly what he's going to do. But again, he's allowing Abraham to participate in this discussion, to again, just work through it with him. Because again, the Lord knows exactly what's going to happen. He knows how many righteous people are there. Maybe Abraham does too. Maybe Abraham knows just how wicked Sodom and Gomorrah is. So it goes from 50, 45, 45 to 40, 40 to 30, 30 to 20, 20 to 10. And then he stops. He stops right there. And there's numerous speculations as to why he stops at 10. But whatever the case is, when the Lord finished speaking to Abraham, and again, he's doing this. He's totally in control. This is not Abraham changing anybody's mind at all. The Lord departs from there, and then Abraham goes back to his place as well. I'm just so, it's incredible to me to see a human, a regular person, be able to have such a frank conversation with Yahweh, have a very honest, open conversation with God, to recognize the characteristics of God, that God is righteous, that he is just, but that he's also loving and gracious. You know, do we find ourselves being able to have such conversations with God? Now, of course, I recognize that it's not a regular two-way conversation as we might have with someone else, but in our prayers, do we feel the ability to be so confident and open and honest with God? Do we feel that way? Remember, we've been talking about Abraham and thinking about the trust that he has in God, the faith that he has in God. I can't help but believe that he was able to have this very open and frank conversation, this honest conversation with God, except for his trust and his faith, and the fact that he knew who his God was, and that he knew that he had the ability to speak in such a way with him. Do we do that? Are we able to speak to God and to recognize his gracious nature, his loving nature, but also his just and righteous nature as well? Are we able to speak to him with these terms being fully recognized within our minds? We should be able to. We should be able to do that. And if we can't, then I encourage us all to reach into Scripture and consider more about who God is, about who his character is, and how he carries these characteristics perfectly within himself, and then speak to him based upon those things. When the need for love and grace is there, speak to him for those things. When there's a need for justice and righteousness, speak to him on behalf of those things as well. I certainly believe we have the ability to do that. And we see the example here of someone who was himself a righteous, faithful man who trusted in God. He was able to have this conversation with the Lord because of that. And certainly we can have the opportunity to do those same things as well. Looking at his example and seeing why that was the case. Again, Abraham believed God. He had faith in God. He trusted God. Therefore, he can have this relationship with God. And I really do believe we can do the same as well if we will be people of belief, faith, and trust. I appreciate so much you tuning in for this reading on this Friday. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday. We'll be back at it again tomorrow as we read through Genesis chapter 19. We'll read about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Again, another pretty famous story from the biblical text. We'll read that tomorrow and talk about it some as well. Looking forward to reading along with you then. Take care and God bless.